Very much, Lindy, for that update. Very terrible story there. I recall a couple of years ago that the same situation happened, I think, with Pick and Pay, and they were praised for having been on the front lines. I'm not sure who's the CEO of ShopRite. They have to come out and tell us what on earth is going on, and not hide and send spokespersons and you name it. Okay? But thank you for that update. You've had ZS. It says ZSC29. If you see that, you must throw the thing away. Oh, you must return it to ShopRite so you can get your refund. Okay, but we're talking about matters of higher education tonight. Students who are in self-catering situations, don't take a chance with those tins of pilchards. Also return them. Bhuti Manamela, my guest tonight, the Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Science and Technology. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I also hope that my colleague, Minister of Finance, is watching this, because and also writing down that ZSC29.
Yeah, he must announce. He must repeat it the whole week, eh?
Yes, I'll make sure I let him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Man, it's good to see you. I know, a very busy time. I always wondered, you know, I had some students here, student leaders here about 2 weeks ago, and I was asking the question, why is it that right at this time of the year when universities open, it's like we all didn't know at some point universities have to open, and so we're dealing with issues that in fact could have been dealt with in November, could have been dealt with in December, before there's a flux, and then you have all of this violence and the strikes and you name it, on the issues that a lot of people think this should have been resolved. The issue of free education was announced in 2017, whatever the circumstances that led to its belated announcement.
Yeah.
Two, the issue of fees and so-called historical debt has always been with us. The minute we announce there's going to be free education, people ask, what about those who already have incurred the debt? Why is it that this thing is bubbling up as a crisis everywhere? We've seen UWC on fire. We've seen Nelson Mandela University. KZN has been particularly in terrible shape. I think the Northwest will not be left behind. What's happening? Why is it? Does this demonstrate a little bit of poor planning on the part of the sector? What's your perspective on this?
Look, I think firstly what I must say is that we as both ministry and department have been doing quite a lot to give support to institutions, to prepare for the opening of the universities and TVET colleges, you know, at the beginning of the year. And secondly, I think it's important that we, you know, quantify the extent of the problem. I'm not saying that if it's only, you know, Westville, therefore we should ignore that. But I'm just saying that, you know, there were times where if the student leadership would say there's a national shutdown, there would indeed be a national shutdown. So we've mainly experienced challenges at, you know, a few institutions. And we've also, you know, we've seen, you know, the ministry, the department going into those institutions, engaging with the stakeholders and trying to help them navigate through what the problems are. But thirdly, we have a big challenge. You would know the big challenge of the so-called institutional autonomy, wherein many of the institutions would still say, even with the support that we give them in planning for the reopening of universities, they would still say, you know, we reserve our right to increase university fees up to this percentage. We reserve our right to demand, as is the case in UKZN Westville campus, 15% upfront payment on historical debt, irrespective of what you know, the minister's determination has been, national government and all of that.
Okay, sorry to interject there, because that's a good basis to start, and I'm going to have to take a break now. When we come back, we should then be saying, if free education was announced, right, was there proper planning to make sure that institutions can actually implement it at their level? And I want you to just get your perspective, even if it's in hindsight, on that particular issue. We're talking to Bhuti Manamela. You can give us a ring, of course, if you want to talk to him throughout the night. You can also WhatsApp us and send us some tweets there to engage him in that conversation. Just take a break now. We We're coming to you live from Linden here in Randburg, in Johannesburg. And my frank interview tonight is with Deputy Minister Bhuti Manamela. There seems to be a disjuncture between, okay, there's free education, there's NSFAS and what, and then institutions, as you have described, still, in a sense, perpetuate what happened before, where there was issues of access that were not even linked to academic performance, etc. And then you got this so-called missing middle, right? Was that not factored into the discussion of free education? Why is it that it's presented this is like a problem we can't tackle, this missing middle, which basically may mean that it's people who are not, whose parents earn 400,000, not 300, but these parents have 5 kids at university, and so they're just as poor as everybody else. Tackle that for me a little.
Look, I think firstly, I mean, the government's policy on fee-free higher education covers close to 90% of households, given what the income of those households are, which is a maximum of 350,000. And then there are those who are regarded as the missing middle, which is the up to 600,000.
I see.
And we have various interventions, various funds. Universities themselves have got various funds to address those. But I think the important thing that we need to mention here is that compared to those whom we cover, this is an insignificant amount. Of course, given what the amounts required would be, it wouldn't be possible for government to cover everyone under the fee-free higher education. So earlier on you asked me if we were ready. At the time the announcement was made, we were not ready. We had to work throughout 2017 December into January, and I must admit that there were big challenges at the time. I mean, we had to go throughout the whole country, even after having worked with institutions to prepare for the rollout of fee-free higher education. But compared to 2018 academic year and what happened last year and this year, we think that we've made significant progress. I know that there are people who are arguing that if there's fee-free higher education, why do we need NSFAS? So we're running this as a fully subsidized bursary scheme, as opposed to, so you need that kind of administration.
So because somebody must still pay. So you're basically paying institutions to accept the learners who otherwise would not afford to be at the institution.
Exactly, and somebody must still do the means test and triangulate that with the institutions and with the universities. And that's the role that the NSFAS has basically been paying. The numbers of students who are being covered by the fee-free higher education policy are, astounding. For the 700,000 plus students who go to TVET colleges, for instance, 95% of those are covered through the fee-free higher education. If you go to some of the universities, 80–90% of the students in those universities, particularly those regarded as historically black institutions, are covered by the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. So, of course, your UCT, your WITS and all of that will have 20–30% of their student population being only covered by NSFAS. So this policy has drastically changed and made an impact on a big number of students. But not only that, we've also seen the sector expanding based on the National Development Plan's objectives. So, for instance, in 1994, when you were a student leader, there were about 500,000 students in our universities. Now that number has increased with about 110% to close to 1.1 million.
Sure, it's massive access.
That's only universities and public universities. So, and the intention is to increase that to, to close to 1.6 million by 2030. And we've made significant progress also in the TVET sector. And we think that the manner in which we have changed our attitude towards higher education, its expansion and the skills pool, but also participation of people who are historically excluded. I mean, 59% of people who go to universities are women, and most of those black women. 76% of the people who go to universities are black people. So the face of universities and the face of higher education is drastically changing in our country, and this is essentially because government is accelerating access. But what is more pleasing, JJ, is the fact that we're seeing more and more students, graduating. I mean, we've had close to 300,000 students last year graduating, and a significant number of those in science, engineering, and technology studies. And of course, they're spread around all the other sectors. So I think we've done quite well, not only at the back of the fee-free higher education, but also at the back of small interventions that have been made, be they policy-wise, legislation, but also be it through our engagement and confrontation, but complementing some of the work that has been happening in institutions. We're not yet there, but we think that we are in the right direction towards, placing higher education in the manner within which it has been envisioned by the policies of the ruling party.
You can give us a ring, of course, if you want to join that conversation on 010-594-5140, so that you can pose any questions you may have to the Deputy Minister. I was talking to a couple of people about higher education and the announcement the President made announcing 2 universities, one criminology university in Bamaskra and another one in Kurleni. And there was criticism that this seems like vanity projects, because if you go to the WUS, I didn't know it was called WUS, somebody called it WUS,
Walter Sisulu University, yeah.
Right? The place is a disaster. The student accommodation is a pits, man. You go to Ngoy, you go to Fort Hare, which is a historic landmark, right? It seems like those universities can do with an injection, with expansion plans, with increased accommodation, which the President has now said 64 billion, and that's quite welcome and so on. Why build new universities? You just built university in Nelspruit, university in Kimberley, which, frankly, to be honest, in terms of feedback, I've not been there. So I speak under huge correction. They look like an extended colleges. In other words, you could pump some money in there and make them solid as universities, make sure they can take more kids, and so on. Do you share that skepticism that says fix WUSU, build some decent places, support the medical faculty that I'm told is battling and so on, fix Fort Hare, increase it, build another campus for Fort Hare, etc., so that you got the nucleus functioning, and then you can expand, rather than go and start from scratch, where nobody will want to even go to those universities because they think, oh, this thing may collapse, because now they have done a half-baked thing in Nelspruit, now they are doing another university in Ekurhuleni. What's your perspective there, just to put us at ease?
Look, I mean, I listened to the leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, who spoke extensively about why are we not investing money into Wits, by Braamfontein, expanded, and all of that. And I wonder how many people have been, for instance, to Fort Hare lately, and look at how it has completely changed from what it was, in the late 90s. I went to a TVET college where I started my higher education. This was 20 years later. And I looked at the kind of investment that government has made into that institutions. New workshops, new administration blocks, new lecture halls, but also investment into infrastructure that, improves the output and all of that. The biggest challenge that we face in higher education is student accommodation. And that's why the President has prioritized it with the 64 billion investment injection. The student housing infrastructure project has been churning out, on average anything between 7,000 to 10,000 beds, and particularly focusing on historically black institutions. So you talk Univen, you talk University of Limpopo, you talk Fort Hare. WUSU is one of those campuses where we faced tremendous challenges. I personally went to WUSU. I had a discussion with the Vice-Chancellor and the stakeholders, and they had plans in the pipeline, some of them already being launched, and we're beginning to see those challenges. So we're not denying that there are problems, but I think that we have done so much to ensure that we improve the face of the infrastructure of most of our higher education institutions. Speaking about
ready for a new university. of good
Okay,
land.
so this particular university is a university that's going to be specializing in science and technology.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of direction which you know, the minister and the president intimated to that if we to improve the quality and the output of higher education, we need to be you know, complementing our comprehensive universities with universities that specializes in particular fields. So this is the beginning of you know, universities that specializes
but
in
wouldn't
particular
that be a faculty of the University of the Northwest, which seems to have been dumped there, that merger of University of the former Unibo and Potchefstroom?
If you go anywhere in the world, JJ, most of the universities are you know, focused universities that are coming up you know, recently, and that's where we need to be going also with our TVET colleges, so that you know, when you're going in here, you're going to be a student of science and technology, aviation, and all of that. The interesting thing about both University of Mpumalanga and Sol Plaatje, I spent time at Sol Plaatje University, and it's one of the best performing universities. You know, of course, people will say, I mean, they've got only 3,000 students. There's no university that starts with 20,000 students.
Sure.
A university must organically grow. And the beauty about Sol Plaatje University is the fact that it is beginning to show us what it means to build a university with new values, new approach, in a democratic dispensation.
No baggage.
This is how this institution has always been, and it is going to be. You know, so they've set themselves very pragmatic transformational goals. You know, and they are gradually, you know, achieving those. 80 to 90% of the students going to Sol Plaatje University are students from the Northern Cape, students who ordinarily would not have had access to Their projection by 2025 is anything between 3,000 and 5,000 students. They're going to be one of the biggest contributors, together with the University of Mpumalanga and the new university in Ekurhuleni, into us attaining our 1.6 million participation rate at, you know, and I would really caution leaders to be careful not to speak about you know, institutions of filing or any matter in society without really having looked deeper into what is happening in those spaces. Exactly.
All right, we'll talk about that. There's a University of Criminology. I'm not sure where that fits in, but I would like to talk about that after the break. We're talking to Bhuti Manamela, the Deputy Minister of... He used to be a student leader himself from a TVET college and caused trouble in his days. Now the students are marching to him. I wonder how he deals with that kind of thing. After the break, we'll take your calls as you also engage with him. Let's take a break. All right, our frank interview with Bhuti Manamela continues. You can, of course, continue to give us a ring throughout. Clayton in Mahikeng. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. How's it?
All right, how's it?
Fine, thank you. I've got 90 rooms that are close to the university in Mabato.
Yeah.
I've been renting them out to NSFAS students for the last 2-3 years without any problems.
Okay.
I charge them 900 Rand a month.
Okay.
Today I got a notice from NSFAS to say that all my premises have to be NSFAS approved, but unfortunately I had until the end of January to have them approved. They told me after the date, so now the properties are not approved. Now I would like to know, NSFAS is a loan. Those students have to pay that money back when they get their first job. How can, how can NSFAS dictate to the students that they must pay 3,000 Rand each, 2 in a room? How can they dictate how they must spend their money? We're offering accommodation for 900. NSFAS are putting them into rooms for 3,000 Rand per student. It seems to me like the Bhutis and the Chomis are all in there at the university. It's just, this fellow on TV looks a little bit deeper into the matter. Because the students, they want to live with us, but they...
Okay, Clayton, just stay on the line there. Bhuti, how does it work? This NSFAS approval of accommodation.
So this is what happens. So the department has set up the norms and standards in terms of student accommodation. So the university goes there and inspect and then approve, and then they enter into an agreement with Clayton, and then they will then pay him. Or the student goes to Clayton and say, can I rent your room? And then NSFAS pays the student pays...
But Clayton seems to be saying he can give it cheaper. And you are insisting that they must pay 3,000.
No, we look, I mean, this is what we've experienced in some of the institutions.
And private accommodation.
So we go and say this room is fitting for a student who's studying at a TVET or at a university. And then we're giving students that particular rate. And then they'll go out and then get a cheaper room.
But still take 3,000.
They take 3,000.
Take the change.
And then they take the change.
Clayton, do you get it?
And then they go to the pharmacy and spend that money.
Oh no, we lost Clayton.
But Clayton must know that. So with the current dispensation, no student will be expected to pay that money back.
Okay.
So that's part of the fee-free higher education subsidy.
I see. So it's not a loan. But you are just raising the fact that it's giving it cheaper because they must still pay it back. But there's still a matter there that you are raising, which is quite important. Your system seems to allow a situation where students can then get a change and put it in their pocket instead of paying all of it. Why don't you just pay the accommodation directly?
Look, so there are those instances where the universities go and then they say, all right, this accommodation meets our requirements. And then there are those students who go at a back room, which does not meet the standards, but they say, look, this is our allowance. And then we've also found instances where students collude with accommodation providers.
Oh my goodness, man.
So I mean, people find ways within the system.
This reminds me of people who took bursary monies to buy Marans. You remember this big sound system, and then halfway through the year they don't have money for food. So you've got those kind of what I must say to parents out there and also to to students. So we give out 5,200 rands to every student who's qualifying with NSFAS for their textbooks. And then, depending on where the university or TVET college is, we give up to 33,000 for accommodation, and I think just above or close to 13,000 for catering, and then about I think 7,000 rands or so for transport and all. We expect that students will use that money for what it is. So you give them cash into their accounts for all these things. Why don't you give them vouchers? If it's for books, give them vouchers for books.
So we had the voucher system, which was abused, but which was also an additional burden. I mean, we had instances where students were queuing up at Van Skyke or one of these bookstores and then saying, do you want a book? Give me the 200 rands, I'll buy a 500 rand book. You had those kind of things happening, and it was an administrative burden on the part of the National Student.
So rather just give them money for books.
So students have to act responsibly.
And be responsible,
And the beauty about it, JJ, is that, so there was a study that was made looking at students who are beneficiaries of since TAFSA, into NSFAS now and all of that, which showed that most of those students outperform all other categories of students. So those who are paying for themselves, those who are on other bursaries and all of that, are being, so the NSFAS bursary recipients are outperforming all the other students. So I don't want to suggest, and I don't think anybody should suggest, that students out there are irresponsible. But it's just only those few who, when they get the 5,200 rands for textbooks, they would want to, like I said, go to the pharmacy and get some supplies.
This is terrible. But it looks like this, they've become sophisticated over time, the students, and how to manipulate this system. Talking about the students being responsible, I had a chat with the Minister of Higher Education at some point. I bumped into him because he's been refusing to come here, so I bumped into him and said, please, can you come? And he has said to me he'll see my behavior over the next couple of months when they come. But one of the things he raised in that conversation is passion.
The advanced detachment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things he raised with passion is the destruction of property. He told me a staggering number. I think he said over the fees must fall, some 800 million rand, right, was lost to students just burning down things, burning laboratories, burning libraries, right? And he said that his view is that we should stop replacing those things that are burned down. So if you burn down an auditorium like students of UJ who burn 100 million rand auditorium, I don't know why they built 100 million rand auditorium, but nevertheless. But they burned it down. You shouldn't replace that because it incentivizes them to burn some more. Is that the approach where we're going now, that in fact we're going to have to do something more drastic to make sure students don't burn down property?
Well, I mean, we in one way or another have to send a message that, you know, criminal behavior needs to be dealt with criminally. I mean, we had a situation wherein, you know, students were on a rampage, you know, and a lot of money, like you were saying, estimated at more than close to $1 billion actually, which was lost in property destroyed. But are we going to be punishing, you know, so you need to make that balance, that are we going to be punishing the rest of the students? Exactly. So in the University of KZN, for instance, you know, students allegedly burned down an HIV/AIDS center. Oh my goodness! You know, just now, we've seen you know, them destroying university property and all of that. And unfortunately, what may happen into the future, you know, when we have to, you know, prosecute people who destroy public property, you're going to have all these appeals, you know, and the calls for people to be. I really think that we have to, at some point, say, okay, so, you know, enough is enough. Yes, students have the right to protest, you know, and that protest should be of last resort. We should be engaged with the student leadership and everybody else to prevent a situation wherein there's protest. But it's not given that when there's a protest, there must be fire flowing from one of the auditoriums in the university, because you have to go back and study in that institution after the protest. So
you think that message is not sinking in? I mean, I saw my colleague last night. I don't know that you saw the interview with the youngster, right, who battled to say, right, people should not be burning things down. I mean, this is after all the drama, after him being in prison and what have you. But he couldn't give a straight answer to Kathy last night to say this thing is unacceptable, that we shouldn't be burning books. There's nothing that irritates me about somebody burning a library. You know, you can burn many other things. But now it's becoming a habit, right? But also, it's in the context of a society that's so violent. Look at how many trains have been banned in Cape Town. I mean, I don't understand that. The following day, they're in the platform saying, but the train is late. But they banned it yesterday.
Look, I mean, we have done everything in our powers. I mean, the minister met with the student leadership more than 3 times this year. He has personally gone to the University of KZN. We will this week, be sending a delegation from the department to go to UKZN to engage with the student. So there's no excuse. I know that the leadership in KZN have been engaging with the student leadership on that campus. So you cannot say we're not being heard. And I think people who, you know, are using that excuse, it's actually becoming outdated. There's no excuse for people to ban university property, as you would say, being brazen about it. You know, and I think it's something that we must not be apologetic. We must not mince our word. Anybody who is found to have been responsible for having burned down any property that belongs to the public should be investigated, arrested, prosecuted, should be held accountable.
But it seems to me the student leadership is coming to the party, because the ones I had here, I had 3 SRC presidents here from various universities in Gauteng, were very clear in condemning the violence, but also saying address the issues behind that particular violence. Papi in Bloemfontein, Good evening.
Yes, sir. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. How are you? Go for it.
I'm good, yes. Now, I have few issues, but I'll just be quick.
Yeah, just give us two. Take two.
Two. Last year, there was a Nahau shutdown, and there were some resolutions. Now, I just want to find out from the Deputy Minister, especially about the salary disparity and college council employees migrating from council to TVET. How far are they with that? And last week Friday, he was on at one of the TVET here in Free State.
Yes.
And he heard some of the stories, what is happening. And I think TVET colleges, they need maybe the minister to intervene because there are so many things happening in our colleges.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Papi. Quick response to that?
Look, I mean, we are working on that. I was at Velcom at Goldfields TVET College.
Yeah.
I met with the staff leadership there. They raised this issue quite sharply.
Yeah.
We've met as the ministry and the department with the leadership of Nahau. We've agreed on certain terms and conditions on how certain things must happen. We're talking about 30 to 35,000 staff establishment in TVET colleges that has been centralized at the Department of Higher Education and Training. That's a huge number, from a department that used to have a minuscule staff component.
Yeah.
So it's something that we're really working on. I want to assure Papi that, it's something that's getting our attention. Our biggest focus is ensuring that we get as many of the TVET college lecturers competent, well-trained and conversant with what they need to be doing in those institutions.
I want to touch a lot more on that after the break, because I don't know what conversation this was, but somebody was saying the branding or the positioning of TVET has not yet sunk in. That's why people flock and go and die queuing at universities and so on, when in fact they are going to go there and fail or graduate and not know what to do with those degrees, whereas they could have gone to TVET. And then there's this thing of grade 9 exit, really make things better. You say exit at grade 9 and go to TVET. Are we getting that right, that balance and that perception in the sector that TVET shouldn't be for those who have failed to go to university? I want to talk about that after the break. We're talking to Bhuti Manamela. We'll be taking some more of your calls after the break. Interview continues. Our Frank interview continues here on Newsroom Africa. We're going to have an extra 15 minutes, so don't go away. Go up to 15:15, and at 15:15 we do the Citizens Roundtable tonight as the citizens throw forward to this week's budget. What should the Minister of Finance be focusing on? I pray, honestly, that there's no clever idea of increasing VAT again. It was a disaster the last time it happened, and hopefully no poor people are going to be made to suffer at the hands of that budget and a possible increase of VAT there. Jeff, in Murukweng, good evening.
Good evening, JJ.
Jeff, where on earth is Murukweng, man?
Murukweng is on the far corner of the northwest.
But next to which town?
It's far from the town. It's 140 kilometers from the nearest town.
Oh my goodness. Freiberg. Oh my goodness. Okay, what's on your mind?
Hence the minister is coming this side in March.
Is coming in March. Okay. All right.
Yeah, China is coming in March here.
Okay, what's on your mind, Jeff?
Evening, GM. I just want to congratulate that since 1994 so far we have done well in terms of education, but in terms of the vocational courses, your N courses, what is really flicking me is that after a learner completed N6, is then now he has to go for the practicals for 2 years in some other companies, and that thing it's not like it's a must that companies must take people in Morocco. There are a lot of those who have N6 in electrical.
But can't complete because they cannot be placed.
They cannot be placed because that N6 is nothing without practical.
Yes.
So I want the minister to intervene on that. Number two, people in the rural areas, not only in Morocco. Learners cannot access bursaries because bursaries are done online, and they don't have data for that. And most of our schools, they don't have Wi-Fi. So I would want the minister also to intervene on that. And also to indicate that in Northwest we only have 2 universities. Let them think of giving us another university, or in the villages, let them erect the skills development centers for us. And I would like to thank Minister for considering bringing the Career Expo in Morocco. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff, there in Morocco. Very, very big issue. In fact, this was also raised in another conversation that says, why can't TVET colleges, right, be tasked with placing those students if their qualification is so tied, right, to the practicals? In other words, why do they wash their hands and just say, well, here's the N6, it's half-baked, go and get fend for yourself? Because some of the people who go to the TVETs are from rural areas. They don't have the networks of picking up a phone to somebody in the city to say, can I be placed?
Look, firstly, I mean, we're looking at increasing this, but our targets for last year in placing students in workplaces so that they complete and attain their diploma, our targets for last year was around 150,000. I've asked the people in the department who are responsible for this some questions, and we're going to be looking at how we can expand that number. Secondly, your vice principals, academic in most of our TVET colleges are responsible for exactly this task. Thirdly,
but they're not doing it. They're failing.
Some of the colleges are doing it quite well, but others, are obviously battling. But the third point, JJ, is that we have declared 26 of our TVET colleges as centers of specialization. This will grow into all the colleges specializing. So what does this mean? It means that each of those 26 colleges would, so let me take for instance Boland College in the Western Cape. So they specialize in welding, which includes robotic welding and all of that. They partner with industry. So they recruit students already attached to companies. They give them the theoretical training. Upon completion, they become either artisans, apprentices, or they can pursue their diploma. So we're hoping that as part of the interventions, will expand. Our Sector Education and Training Authority, SETAs, are also responsible for workplace-based training. Some of those have had their own challenges, but most of the SETAs, have been able to...
Are they spending their monies now? Because there used to be multi-billion non-spending across those SETAs, billions. I mean, at some point there was 8 billion rand just sitting there and so on. And then you hear half of them are under administration and the money is just being wasted there. What's happening now?
Look, of the 21, 22 of the SETAs, I think it's less than 3 of those which are under administration. There's a new SETA landscape which is going to be, up to 2030 for the next 10 years.
What is new landscape?
So it means
rationalizing the SETAs.
Rationalized. We've reviewed how they've been operating. We're going to be looking at what they are focusing on, their targets and all of that, and meeting their priorities. So of course it will be reviewed, from time to time. So this thing of workplace placement is one of the most important tasks that we have put for ourselves.
Does it not talk to private-public partnerships though? Shouldn't
well, it does.
TVETs go out and actually partner with businesses that would benefit from the skills being developed there?
It does.
And then so that the placement becomes easier.
There are a lot of companies which have come to the party, which have placed TVET college students into their companies for training, and many of the students have attained their diploma. Just a quick point, I mean, we've invested a lot in our TVET colleges. Infrastructure, lecture development, and all of that. And you see, unfortunately, it is not going to be resulting into rapid change in people's perceptions about TVET colleges.
Yes, the thing I was talking about in terms of branding, positioning of TVET in the minds of youngsters.
Having moved to a sector that was about 200,000, 300,000 students, wherein I went to a TVET college
and
because,
you turned out fine.
You know, yeah, but well, also that, I hope so, but also that, you know, because I couldn't pursue whatever I wanted to study at a university, I was like, let me go try the TVET college. That, I think, is changing. So we've moved from that 300,000 now to about 750,000, and we're hoping to, you know, grow the sector. And then the issue of universities. You know, everywhere where you go, someone says, no, we don't have a university here, and then we need a TVET college there, and all of that. One of the responsibilities that, you know, we have agreed on, that I take up with the minister, is the whole issue of online learning. Distance learning,
like
and all of
UNISA.
that. Like UNISA.
UNISA is what? How many students now? Over 250?
300, in fact, yeah, more than 300,000 students, yes.
It's massive. Why can't other universities have a UNISA type model attached
Most
to them?
universities actually have. You know, if you look at Tshwane University of Technology, for instance, University of Pretoria, University of the Free State. Those are, I mean, not University of the Central University of Technology, you know, and all of that. Those are some of the universities and University of Technologies which have specialized in online and distance learning. But we need to expand that platform. We need to introduce that at the TVET sector. But you'll need things like connectivity, you'll need people to have gadgets, you'll need all of those things. A combination of all of those things. I think that Jeff was raising that so that we, in the village they don't have data and they're stuck. But you also need to have a situation where if someone is in wherever, as long as they've got access to some open learning platform, they can study there and walk into one of our public institutions and say, I'm ready to write an exam. So that's the kind of vision that we are you know, looking at. We think it will save us a lot on infrastructure, buildings and all of that. I know people want to see a physical university, but we're operating in a completely different world.
And that talks about the issue of the world of work. I want to touch a little bit on that. Mulawa in Klerksdorp. Good evening. Absolutely, pa.
Madume mogolo na modumedise Bhuti mo. JJ na ke gopola gore ntho engwe tshwanetse re contribute mo gone all of us jo ka batswadi ke go etsa sure gore one of the issues on the route bana ba rona mo di whether ke di college ka mo dikolo gore ha go na le so se go teng toi I think really JJ ha re ka tsenya dinala mo go yone because amara gore almost ha go na le di toi re ka ira so se re se ditang ka puo ya go gae ya se tlhotsa gore o mvekelo ka issue ena ya ga kakaze when kakaze ba se tsa go etsa sure gore mo toi ya bone go bo go tlhaga mathata mo teng obviously kakaze ba dirile dilo tse di leng gore really ne di sa amogeletsege mara after that even na so sa gore gape kakaze himself balwanela go ragollo ko thoma ile gore go tlotse molao. Now I think JJ if really re ka ruta bana ba rona it cannot be correct JJ go tshisiwa sekolo ha o boa go gape o batla go kena bo the same class which is it. Now I think all of us jalo ka batswadi we must contribute mo thutong ya bana ba rona go ba ruta gore ha re toi is ka nna teng mara a nne le maikarabelo go ne le di-consequences.
Absolutely. All right, let's leave it there. Molawa go tlile sentle, and in fact the deputy minister touched on that issue. It has to do with, you know, just the moral fiber of our overall side. I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, not so long ago, you know, communities in Vembe banned schools. Community, I'm talking about the students now. Community say, hell, if you don't incorporate us into we're going to ban down schools. Those students or the youngsters who grow up there go to University of Limpopo or University of and they'll ban the university and then why are these people banning the schools? Anyway, we're going to take a break now, and then after the break we carry on for another 15 minutes with Bhuti Manamela. Minister, I hope that's okay. So we will just have some more conversation, and then at 15:15 we will commence with our citizens roundtable. Citizens already here, ready to weigh in on what to expect from the Minister of Finance this week. So let's take a break now. Dolewa Lindi for those headlines. Okay. I want us to use the remaining time to talk about decolonization of education. Is this thing even going to take off at all? You know, you talk about expanding universities, you talk about all kinds of other things, but it's long since I heard people talk about curriculum transformation and whether or not this has even changed. You know, are there universities that you know, almost are teaching the same things they were teaching 25 years ago? You know, what is your own assessment there? What's going on?
Yeah. Look, I mean, we've started a conversation with universities about 2 or 3 years ago in terms of what has been happening academically in you know, these institutions and essentially what needs to be done. The fear is that you know, to a particular extent, you know, if you look at, for instance, the entire process of knowledge production in universities, your research, you know, and all of that has essentially been based on you know, methods and approaches which are mainly Eurocentric. And we're not saying that that's not knowledge, but all that we're saying is that we are operating within a different context where there's indigenous knowledge systems, you know, beyond, you know, even at an academic level. And I think, you know, we cannot easily dismiss the whole notion of decolonizing our education system and try and ridicule that. We've also challenged the student movement to say that we need to move beyond it being just a slogan.
Absolutely.
And to provide it with, you know, their own substance of what they mean by, you know, the decolonization of, I mean, if you look at...
but shouldn't you have a commission of some kind? I know that they were in a season of commissions and maybe you are afraid to have another commission. But shouldn't you have a commission that would review all of the curriculum? You know, well, I mean, the whole issue of what was to be called curriculum mix, right? Got lost somewhere even in the context of the mergers. You remember when we were merging, let's say, if we merging the Northwest University, right? We had a situation where there are certain things there are certain faculties that were historically in Potchefstroom. If you go there, those faculties are still there. They didn't try in the merger to move some of those faculties to Mafikeng in order to change the curriculum mix of Mafikeng. So it's almost like a homeland system where you emerged, but you still have a homeland in Mafikeng, which is a little bit of a cousin, and then all the resources are still directed at faculties that are in Potchefstroom. Is that not worrisome that there seems to be almost inertia in that regard?
Look, the extent of development varies from one institution to another. I mean, ask most of the students, particularly those who are studying their postgraduate, I mean, who are in their postgraduate. You know, the libraries are filled with literature that has got absolutely no reflection of the continent in which we come from, and that's where it needs to change. Secondly, you know, I've said to you earlier on that we've been engaging with universities for the last 2 to 3 years, and this is just the interventions arising from the 2016 student uprising mainly focused on the fees, and therefore all the other issues fell on the wayside. And I think we need to get back and say what needs to be done. Commission, no commission. I mean, you've got various structures. You've got the Council on Higher Education. You've got the Vice Chancellor's forum. You've got all of those structures. You've got universities themselves, you know, in the department providing that leadership, which we think those are existing platforms within
that
which
could take up that project
that could take up that. But the most important thing, JJ, is we can come with policy at a national level. If struggles on campuses, particularly by students, are not ways for universities to comply with those policies and to change what's happening on campus, nothing.
We're going to fail.
We're going to fail.
Let's take another call then from Free State. Morena, good evening.
kae ngwaneso?
Re tele ka ngwaneso.
And the Deputy Minister, I just have two questions for the Deputy Minister.
Okay, go for it.
One being the effectiveness of college council within the TVET sector. I'm raising this question because many TVET now are on strike, on boycott, and then there are a lot of issues. And then you check where those issues emanate. It has council written all over it. How effective is our councils? Is the department even doing the monitoring on those councils? That's number one. Number two, there's an issue of infrastructure vis-a-vis your NSFAS. Let me make a practical example. NSFAS would fund or rather approve 30,000 students, but in the institutions of higher learning could only take 10,000 of those, and then 20 of them they are sitting there with funding, but yet they do not have
space. Seriously.
Now, it's like that. When we check, I'm talking about golf in particular. They have returned a number of students that could not assist based on the infrastructural challenges, but they can't accommodate all those students. Now, I just want to pose a question to the Deputy Minister that is there a plan to expand these TVET colleges? Much as we are saying there is money, people can go and study. Can we accommodate those students or other potential students thereof?
All right, Morena, thank you so much. The Deputy Minister will respond to your question just now. Let's talk to Robert in Joburg. Robert, good evening.
Oh, thanks.
Hello, Robert. Robert. We've lost Robert. Okay. Will you weigh in the issue, effectiveness of councils at TVET? Is there a general issue there of people not taking their responsibility seriously on these councils?
Look, I was going to ask him for specifics because we've just appointed, college councils in most of our TVET colleges. We've looked at the skills that those people have. It's all about governance. I know that in the past you've had those issues between the college council and the principal or management, where some of the college councils believe they need to run the institution. It happens in many institutions, and we always try and caution and help build, college councils that they move away from that direction. So
all right. Then NSFAS?
So
this juncture between awards and space.
So the president announced 9 new TVET colleges. Some of them are close to completion. This were part of the 12 which were initially announced. So most of those are closer to completion. So that's new, campuses. And so the intention is not only through public statements. So there is actually work done to expand the TVET college sector in terms of infrastructure and all of that. Yes, the public purse may not be able to meet the demand in its entirety and match the so it's going to always be that challenge. But what we know for certain is that for the 2018 academic year, NSFAS have met the expectation of those who have applied for funding, all of them. Those who qualified, those who made the requirement, we've met, so look, we're quite happy with that.
Look, we don't have time to go into science and technology. Maybe we must come back for the second round. But thank you so much for your time and really responding so warmly to our invitation to come and talk to us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Please bring the minister. Tell him I'll behave myself. All right, Bhuti Manamela, the Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Science and Technology, truly a proud product of the student movement, and we really are always filled with pride to see people who have gone up the ranks of the student movement and now are assuming responsibility to make sure that the education of our children is given priority. So all the best with the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
All right. We're going to take a break, and after the break, Citizens Roundtable here on Newsroom Africa.